You're all set.
Now starting the November 5th, 2020 Mount Pleasant Planning Commission meeting. Mr. Kane, will you call roll?
Madam Chair, before I take roll, I wanted to let everyone know, due to recent changes in the state's Open Meetings Act, as we take our roll call roll tonight, I will also need each member to indicate the city, county, and state that they're joining the meeting from. So if you're joining us from Mount Pleasant, you would need to indicate that you're in Mount Pleasant, Isabella, Michigan, as we take our roll. So I appreciate everybody's patience, as that'll slow us down a little bit in our normal roll call procedure. Commissioner Daly.
Present, Mount Pleasant, Michigan, Isabella County, State of Michigan.
Commissioner Friedrich is absent. Commissioner Honig.
Present, I'm in the city of Mount Pleasant, County of Isabella, State of Michigan.
Commissioner Horgan.
I'm present and I'm in Mount Pleasant in Isabella County in the state of Michigan.
Commissioner Irwin.
Present here at City Hall, State of Michigan, Isabella County, City of Mount Pleasant.
Commissioner Kostreva is absent. Commissioner Leash.
Present, City of Mount Pleasant, Isabella County, State of Michigan.
Commissioner Ortman.
Present in the city of Mount Pleasant, Isabella County, State of Michigan.
Commissioner Rise.
Present. I am in the city of Mount Pleasant, Isabella County, State of Michigan.
Thank you, Commissioner Rise. Madam Chair, you have a quorum.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Any comments? Mr. Kane, will you take a roll call vote?
Commissioner Daly.
Aye.
Commissioner Honig.
Aye.
Commissioner Horgan.
Aye.
Commissioner Irwin.
Aye.
Commissioner Leash.
Aye.
Commissioner Ortman.
Aye.
Commissioner Rise.
You're on mute.
Aye.
Madam Chair, that passes 7-0.
Thank you. And next item on the agenda is approval of the October 1st, 2020 regular meeting minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Mr. Kane, will you take a roll call vote?
Commissioner Daly.
Aye.
Commissioner Honig.
Aye.
Commissioner Horgan.
Aye.
Commissioner Irwin.
Aye.
Commissioner Leash.
Aye.
Commissioner Ortman. Commissioner Ortman.
Aye.
Commissioner Rise.
Aye.
Madam Chair, that passes 7-0.
Thank you. And next item on the agenda is the Zoning Board of Appeals report, but since Commissioner Friedrich's not here, we will move on to the next item, which is communications. Mr. Kane?
Madam Chair, you have one communication in your packet this evening, which is from Kin Properties. It's regarding our first special use permit public hearing this evening. Kin Properties is the owner of 2003 South Mission Street.
Thank you. And next item on the agenda is the public hearing for SUP 2010 and SPR 2010. Mr. Kane?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Everyone's able to see my presentation?
Mhm.
Perfect.
Yes.
All right. Before we get into our first public hearing tonight, I thought it would be helpful to provide some background context on the 5 marijuana cases that you'll be considering this evening, just as I did when we considered our first batch of medical marijuana special use permits back in 2019. So you'll recall that the Planning Commission worked on adult use marijuana zoning ordinances in 2019. Ultimately, both the regulatory and zoning ordinances were adopted in September of last year. The city began accepting applications, license applications for retailer, or I should say for recreational adult use marijuana facilities in January, and accepted those through the month of February. Ultimately, for the limited license types, growers, micro businesses, and retailers, we only received more applications for the retailer license type for the limited license types that were available. We received 10 of those applications, which triggered under our ordinance a competitive selection process. Those 3 retailers were selected and received their conditional license authorization on August 21st. In order for our applicants for marijuana licensing to maintain a conditional authorization, there are several things that they need to do during the 18-month period that conditional authorization can be valid for. And 2 of those have to do with tonight's public hearing, which is within 30 days of their conditional authorization, those applicants have to apply to the Planning Commission for a special use permit. And they need to receive that special use permit from the Planning Commission within 6 months. So the first 3 cases tonight are those retailers that were conditionally authorized in August. They've met that first deadline and they're here tonight in order to get their special use permit for their project. Are there any questions about the overall process before we jump into our first public hearing this evening?
Jacob, maybe I read this in the paper about medical marijuana facilities thinking they're being left out of the adult use marijuana facilities. I don't know really if this is a question.
Yeah, I mean, I can speak to that, Commissioner Daly, and just indicate that the retailer, the adult use retailer selection process provided some consideration in terms of point allocation to folks who had an existing medical marijuana license in the city. But those points were not decisive. They were one part of a larger picture of looking at which applicants were best suited to operate in compliance with the state law that governs recreational marijuana establishments. And one of the applicants that you'll be considering tonight of the 3 is an applicant that holds a conditional authorization for a medical marijuana provisioning center as well. So one of the 3 of these facilities will have that crossover of medical and recreational marijuana potentially if they complete their licensing.
Thank you.
If there are no other questions, I will go ahead and jump into our first special use permit and site plan review. This is for the property located at 901.
We're talking about ours right now. Are you on?
Well, it sounds like we got some audience members that aren't muted. If you could please mute your microphone, that would be great. Thank you. So our first case tonight is at 901 East Broomfield. It's a request for a special use permit and site plan review for an adult use marijuana retailer. The subject property is Zone CD5 Urban Center with a residential dwelling use restriction. The future land use is commercial / mission redevelopment overlay zone. Currently, it is a vacant lot. It was at one time used for parking for the EBC warehouse store that's located immediately to the north. The property owner is Loon Cannabis Company, and the site area is just shy of 1 acre. On the map on the screen, you'll see an overview of the property. It's located at the northwest corner of Broomfield and Evans Streets. The property immediately to the north is a shopping center. The property to the east is a vacant lot. The property to the south is an automatic car wash, as well as a multi-unit rooming development. And the property immediately to the west is a gas station. The properties to the north, south, and west share the same zoning as the subject property. The property to the east is zone CD4 General Urban. Picture on the screen shows the current conditions on the property. This is along the East Broomfield corridor, looking towards the north and east. So you'll see where there is an existing driveway curb cut into Broomfield Street. Evans Street would be here in the distance at the intersection, and it would run along that perimeter of the parking lot toward the north. To the left, just out of frame, would be the side of the EBC warehouse store. This perspective is taken from the interior of the parking lot. You'll see, as I mentioned, there is a multi-unit rooming dwelling development and a oil change and car wash facility located to the south across Broomfield Road. This is looking from interior of the parking lot. Immediately to the right of the photographer is the Shell station, the rear of the Shell station at Broomfield and Mission. I'm directly across the perspective from the viewer is the intersection of Broomfield and Evans Street. The applicant's proposing to occupy essentially the eastern half of this parking lot area. The western half would remain available for future development. Adult use marijuana retailers are a special use in the CD5 zoning district, and as such, they're subject to several special use permit criteria. These special use permit criteria, some of them apply to all adult use marijuana establishments, and there are additional criteria that are specific to the retailer use. Rather than go through them each, I'll just note that all of these criteria are included in your staff report. And as a condition of approval this evening, one of those conditions is a recommendation the applicant comply with all of those criteria as part of the special use permit. On the screen, you'll see an overview of the proposed site plan. The applicant is proposing to construct a new 2-story building. This building would be located on the southeast corner of the property with a parking lot located to its north. The retailer building itself is 4,240 square feet. The site includes 24 parking spaces, as well as associated landscaping, streetscaping, and a somewhat unique feature, I think probably the first that we've seen in Mount Pleasant, is a solar carport structure. That's indicated on this site plan by the dashed lines that are over this first row of parking to the north of the building. On the screen, you'll see various depictions of the proposed project. The one on the top left is a perspective from the corner of Broomfield and Evans Streets looking towards the north and west. You'll see in the distance on the right that ABC warehouse store. The perspective in the center is an aerial view of that same spot. So looking down on the site from the air, this would be Evans Street running on the right-hand side and Broomfield Street running on the left-hand side. And then finally at the bottom, you'll see a perspective looking at the site from Evans Street towards the southwest. And so this would be looking at the rear of the building. The solar carport structure that I mentioned previously is located immediately behind the building. To the left where you see that the band depicted, that is East Broomfield Street. The site plan as submitted meets all of the minimum requirements of the zoning ordinance in terms of the elements that are included. As proposed, the new building does also meet the setbacks of the CD5 zoning district. The applicant is proposing to add new streetscaping on both Evans Street and Broomfield Street, consistent with the requirements of the code. And the building will be built at a 0-foot lot line on both streetscapes. The proposed building is located at the corner and is not more than 24 feet from the existing corner property line or the proposed side property line. One of staff's recommended conditions this evening is for the applicant to divide the property so that it is consistent with the facade build-out standards of the CD5 zoning district through that lot division. In terms of building standards, the proposed building is consistent with all the requirements of the CD4 zoning district, including height, ceiling height, entrance location, facade standards, and roof type and pitch. As I mentioned, the division that's proposed would allow the development to satisfy the frontage build-out requirement of the CD5 zoning district. In terms of parking standards, the applicant's proposing 23 parking spaces. The parking spaces and drive aisles are consistent with the dimensional standards of the zoning ordinance. The applicant is currently showing 4 bicycle parking spaces, which is less than the minimum required by the zoning ordinance. And there is not currently a full specification for that bicycle parking. So staff is recommending as a condition of approval that those items be brought up to the minimum of requirements of the zoning code. In addition, staff is recommending in the conditions of approval that the cross-access easements that are required by code be provided to the parking areas to both the north and the west. In terms of off-street loading, storage, drive-through, trash receptacle, and dumpster, utility box, and service meter requirements, the applicant will need to add information to the site plan that indicates the plan for solid waste. At this time, there is no indication on the plan of the plan for solid waste. And so if that's to be a dumpster enclosure or other enclosure structure, that will need to be shown on the plan, its location, as well as the specification. If the solid waste is to be stored interior of the building, that will also need to be indicated on the floor plans with a note that that's the plan for the solid waste for the property. In terms of non-building components, the proposed solar carport is located in the 3rd lot layer, which is the area in which it is permitted in the CD5 zoning district. In addition, the applicant is proposing solar panels on the roof. Those are hidden by the roof parapet, which is also consistent with the requirements of the zoning ordinance. In terms of private landscaping and fencing, the applicant's proposing trees within the parking area, which are consistent with the requirement for parking lot landscaping in the CD5 zoning district. The applicant is also proposing additional shrub and flower plantings on the site, which exceed the minimum requirements of the zoning code. In terms of screens and streetscaping, the applicant is proposing an evergreen screen of the parking area from the Evans Street right-of-way, which is consistent with the requirements of the CD5 district. Currently, the hedge is shown east of the sidewalk, so the sidewalk is next to the parking lot and the hedge is next to the road. This is going to need to be switched so that the hedge is placed between the parking area and the public sidewalk and street. And so that is also included in staff's recommendation this evening, that aspect of the site plan be adjusted. Finally, in terms of streetscaping, the applicant's proposing to install compliant streetscaping along both East Broomfield and Evans Streets, which includes new sidewalks and planting strips with street trees. As you may have noted in the picture of the current conditions, the current sidewalk is very narrow and is located essentially next to the travel lane on Broomfield Street. There's not currently a sidewalk on Evans Street. The applicant's proposal would remedy both issues. We are currently still working with the applicant on resolving some issues related to the grading at this location. There is some grade change present between Evans, at the corner of Evans and Broomfield, up to the interior of the site. And so we're looking for an acceptable solution to accommodate that grade at an ADA, in an ADA compliant manner that would eliminate the need for a switchback or any steps on a public sidewalk. And so we'll continue to work with the Public Works Department and the applicant to make the necessary changes to that grading to make sure that we are able to provide that ADA compliant sidewalk along both frontages. Because of the lack of right-of-way at this particular location, the applicant will need to provide public easements for access to those sidewalks along the streetscapes on both frontages. And then finally, I would just note that there are signs shown on some of the renderings in your packet, and I would just remind you that signage is subject to review and permit by the by the Building Safety Department. So your approval tonight would not include approval of any of the signage depicted in the project documents. And lighting, we do not currently have specifications for lighting. Any lighting that is proposed to be added to the site would need to be compliant with the city's lighting code, which is in Chapter 96, nuisance. And primarily focuses on light spillage, light trespass, and lighting of the sky. So with that, staff is recommending approval of the special use permit and site plan review subject to 9 conditions. First, the applicant comply with the special use permit criteria for adult use establishments, as well as the specific criteria applying to retailers. 2, that the applicant work with staff to provide a code compliant streetscape plan for Broomfield and Evans Streets, which is to address that grading issue I mentioned earlier. 3, the applicant shall provide specifications for the proposed bicycle parking, solid waste plan, sidewalks and retaining wall, and increase the number of bicycle parking spaces to satisfy the minimum required by code. 4, the applicant shall shift the proposed screening hedge to the east of the parking area and west of the public sidewalk. 5, cross-access easements shall be provided between contiguous parking areas to the north and west. 6, that public access easements shall be provided for the new streetscape areas for Bloomfield and Evans Streets. 7, that the applicant should provide specifications for the site lighting to demonstrate compliance with Chapter 96. 8, that the applicant shall split the subject property prior to receiving a certificate of occupancy. That's to satisfy the requirements for frontage build out in the CD5 zoning district. And 9, that the applicant shall comply with the requirements of public works and public safety. Madam Chair, I know we have multiple folks representing the applicant, Leaf Cannabis Company this evening, who are here to answer any questions that the Planning Commission might have for them. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Kane?
I have one, if I can, please. Can you explain the easement thing again?
Sure. Let me get the site plan back up on the screen. So you'll see essentially at present, the property line on this property is more or less at the back of the curb along Broomfield Street.
Okay.
So the public sidewalk and the various streetscaping improvements are actually on private property. So the easement that's recommended would provide that public access to that sidewalk so that that would be a public sidewalk that the public could utilize.
Okay, so the property owner would be paying for that and then recording an easement it with the county giving it to the city?
They would be recording an easement. I don't know that it'll be, maintenance would probably fall to the city in terms of the future, but yes, they would be installing it now, paying for the installation, and then that easement would provide the public with the access rights to utilize it.
Okay, that's a little unusual, isn't it?
I wouldn't say unusual. We certainly typically have sufficient room in our rights of way for all of our public infrastructure, but that is not exclusively the case. We do sometimes have sidewalk easements even in residential areas, but more typically
Let's figure out how to get you to the house.
we would see easements for other items like water or sewer lines where there's not room in the right of way to accommodate access for the entire facility.
Okay. All right.
Any other questions for Mr. Kane?
It'll take 30 minutes to get there. Good gracious.
Okay, if the applicant would like to say something?
Good evening. My name is Chris Enright. I'm the architect. I'm at 628 East Parent Street in Royal Oak, Michigan. Just quickly to explain who Loom is and who we are. Loom is the partnership of the ownership of Bell Tire and of Warrior Sporting Goods. And Jacob and I have worked together when we first built the Bell Tire store in Pickard, and it's this same group that is going to be constructing and maintaining and hopefully obtaining the entitlement for the various projects that we're proposing in the city of Mount Pleasant. Loom currently has the largest number of adult use licenses in operation in the state of Michigan right now, 11. We currently have approximately 25 other licenses that already have been approved in other communities. And those projects are in various states of approval, entitlement, and construction, similar to the two projects that we're looking at tonight. We have worked closely, and Jacob's been very helpful with us in terms of being a liaison for the meeting the terms of the zoning ordinance and doing whatever we can to comply with the current requirements of the particular site and making sure that we meet the standards of the ordinance with providing a multi-story building, parking, and on-site other developments. As stated, we will work to continue to work to get that sidewalk with the proper ADA sloping. It's a little bit of a challenge there with the current grading, but with our engineers and some of the proposed retaining walls that we're looking at on the property, we have every confidence that we'll be able to make that. So we have no issue with any of the conditions for approval, and we feel as though we can easily meet those in all due haste. So with that, I am here to answer any questions the commission may have.
Thank you. Any questions for the applicant?
Well, this seems like a lot of stuff that, to my mind, should have been worked out before an application comes to us. I'm wondering if you could grade yourself on the completeness of this application.
Well, looking at the number of the conditions that are here, not all these conditions are related to the site plan. And a number of these conditions, admittedly, were presented to us relatively recently, and they're relatively minor in breadth. So probably the only real issue of any significance, in my opinion, since you asked for my opinion about grading of this, is the actual, ironically, grading of the sidewalk itself in the front, which is a public amenity. The other items are fairly straightforward and simple elements that can be handled relatively and without much difficulty.
And Commissioner Daly, I would echo what Mr. Enright said. If I had any concern regarding the applicant's ability to work with staff to resolve these conditions after tonight's meeting, I would have recommended postponement. I think the number of conditions is largely what it is because this is a full redevelopment of a property, which we don't often see. We're very frequently dealing with renovation or modification of an existing site. So there's simply just a lot of activity going on with this project. It's slightly larger scale than the norm. And I think the conditions on the number of conditions are, well, number one, many of the conditions are relatively minor. But number two, I think it's largely consistent with the scale of the project.
Thank you. These solar panels look as if they're laid flat. And you can lay them any level you want. You've also got them right next to a building, which looks like it's going to shade those panels. Are there plans to tip those things up to where they'll be getting direct sun more or less in the main 3 hours of any given day, which is where roughly 85% of your energy is going to be?
The solar panels on for SK2, there's a detail showing the side of the panels, the structure, and that structure is tilted somewhat less than 30 degrees, but it is tilted. It's kept away from the building as far as possible. With those panels and the panels that are on the roof of the building, it's just, is our investment and our encouragement, public encouragement to try to get people to use and be aware of alternate energy sources. So it's our intent to do the best we can to incorporate those elements. But yes, they are curved, they are angled, and they are not flat. They're also angled on the roof as well.
Well, having been in the solar business, I mean, maybe you have it right. I would take a look at what angles are what going to give you what information. Yes, I applaud the use of solar panels. Thank you.
Any other questions for the applicant? Okay, hearing none, I will open up the public comment portion of this hearing if there's anyone from the public that would like to comment.
Madam Chair, I'll just note that we did not receive any comments in the comment email box.
Thank you, Mr. Kane. And hearing no one speaking up to speak, I'm closing public comment and opening discussion.
Move to approve SUP 2010 SPR 2011, subject to the following conditions. 1, the applicant shall comply with all special use permit criteria for adult use establishments, as well as the specific criteria applying to retailers. 2, the applicant shall work with staff to provide a code compliant streetscape plan for Broomfield and Evans Streets. 3, the applicant shall provide specifications for the proposed bicycle parking, solid waste plan, sidewalks and retaining wall, and increase the number of bicycle parking spaces to satisfy the minimum required by code. 4, the applicant shall shift the proposed screening hedge to be east of the parking area and west of the public sidewalk. 5, cross-access easements shall be provided between contiguous parking areas to the north and west of the site in accordance with section 154.412.a.23. 6, public access easements shall be provided for the new streetscape areas for Broomfield and Evans Streets. 7, the applicant shall provide specifications for all proposed site lighting to demonstrate compliance with section 96.13 of Mount Pleasant City Code. 8, the applicant shall split the subject property prior to receiving a certificate of occupancy. 9, the applicant shall comply with requirements of public works and public safety.
Second.
Any discussion?
I'll take this on faith from Jacob that these are all things that are doable and not major.
Well, the applicant did say he was agreeable to all the conditions, so I would think they would be quite doable.
Okay.
Any other comments or discussion? Mr. Kane, will you take a roll call vote?
Commissioner Daly,
Aye.
Commissioner Honig,
Aye.
Commissioner Horgan,
Aye.
Commissioner Irwin. Aye. Commissioner Leash,
Aye.
Commissioner Ortman,
Aye.
Commissioner Rise. Commissioner Rise. Did we lose Commissioner Rise?
Oh, no.
Looks like we did. All right, well, Madam Chair, that motion passed 6-0.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is SUP 2011 and SPR 2012. Mr. Kane?
All right, Madam Chair, next item is similar project, a new adult use marijuana retailer proposed at 1207 North Mission Street. In this case, the subject property is located in the CD4 General Urban Zoning District. There are no special requirements associated. The future land use is commercial. As with the last case, the current use of this property is a vacant lot, although as you'll see in the current condition photographs, in this case, the vacant lot is truly and completely vacant. It's currently a grassed field. Property owner with Bloom Cannabis Company, site area 1.74 acres. As I indicated, the property in question is vacant. It's located on North Mission, roughly due west of the Meyer store. It is just south and west of the intersection of North Mission and Corporate Drives. The use of the property immediately to the north is an access road to the industrial development that's located west of the subject property, and the zoning of those properties to the north and west is industrial. Immediately to the east is the Meyer store with a commercial CD4 zoning. To the south is a kitchen and bath showroom in the CD4 zoning district, and to the west is an industrial use. In that industrial district, there's a metal fabrication company that's located immediately to the west. Current conditions of the property. This is a perspective of the property looking north on Mission Street, sort of to the north and west. You'll see, for those of you who've been to the Secretary of State's office, that Secretary of State Plaza is located to the north. Although it's not the next north contiguous parcel to this property. There are access drives both here in the foreground and also in the background that go into those industrial developments that are located to the west. Mission Street is here located on the right-hand or eastern side of this photograph. This next perspective is looking from the interior of the site. So the Secretary of State's office would be to the rear of the photographer. This is looking out towards Mission Street and towards the south and east. You'll see the Meyer store and the Fifth Third Bank located in the distance. The applicant's proposing to construct the new retailer structure here on the left-hand side and generally in the area where this sign and the pickup truck are located today, with associated parking and other site improvements. As with the last case, adult use marijuana retailers are subject to a special use permit in the CD4 zoning district. The code defines a retailer as an establishment that sells or otherwise transfers marijuana to individuals who are 21 years of age or older. As I mentioned, the site is currently vacant. The applicant is proposing to construct a 2,500 square foot building to add 27 parking spaces and some additional site improvements, including the landscaping, streetscaping, and bicycle parking. As with the last case, there's also a proposal for some solar parking. This is an overview of that site plan. So as noted, Mission Street's located here on the right-hand side. That access drive that the prior photograph was taken from is located here to the north. The proposed building is located at the street with parking located to its rear. You'll see noted that the applicant's proposing to use an underground storm detention system, which would be located under this portion of the parking lot. The solar carport structure would be located here in the third lot layer with other miscellaneous site improvements, including a new public sidewalk with access into the retailer business. Here are some perspective shots of the proposed new structure. So on the top left-hand corner, you'll see an aerial perspective looking down on the site from over Mission Street. And you'll see that new building with the storefront type facade along Mission Street with the parking lot located at the rear with that solar carport, as I mentioned, over the portion of that parking lot. In the center, you'll see a picture of the facade of the building from ground level. This is looking towards the south and west. So roughly from that access drive that enters into the Secretary of State office and the industrial development. And once again, you'll see the storefront frontage that's proposed along Mission Street. A lot of glazing area, which is good to see. In this case, it is a one-story building with parking located to the rear. And then at the bottom right, you'll see a perspective looking from roughly the Secretary of State parking lot toward the south, and you'll see the rear of the building along with that solar park carport and the remainder of that parking area. Go through some of the requirements of the site. As designed, the new building is placed without setback on the new streetscaping from Mission Street, which is consistent with the requirements of the CD4 zoning district. There's no side setback required in the CD4 zoning district, and the building is not located within the minimum required 3-foot rear setback. In terms of building standards, this project is consistent with all of the applicable standards of the CD4 zoning district, with the exception of frontage build out. Once again, this parcel will require a division in order to make the development consistent with that frontage build out requirement, and that is one of the conditions recommended by staff in the staff recommendation this evening. In terms of parking standards, the applicant's proposed 27 vehicle parking spaces are designed consistent with the dimensional requirements of the zoning ordinance. Once again, the applicant's proposal for bicycle parking is somewhat below the minimum code requirement. And so one of the conditions of approval tonight is to increase that number to at least the minimum required by code, and to provide a full set of specifications for that bicycle parking. And once again, for the applicant to provide that cross access between this property and adjacent properties, which is required in section 412A23 of the zoning ordinance. We're also looking on this application for more details on the solid waste plan. Those will need to be added either in the form of specifications for a dumpster or trash receptacle enclosure, or in a note that the solid waste will be handled somewhere on the floor plan of the building, interior to the building. In terms of non-building components, the proposed solar panels on the roof are located inside the roof parapet. The carport's located in the third lot layer. Both items are consistent with the requirements of the CD4 zoning district. Private landscaping and fencing. Again, the applicant's proposing trees within the parking area that are consistent with the requirements for a parking lot and landscaping of the parking lot in the CD4 zoning district. The applicant's also proposing additional shrubs and flower plantings which go beyond the minimum requirements of the ordinance. The applicant's proposing to install a street screen between the public right-of-way and the parking lot. And the mechanism for that would be a masonry wall. We do need a specification for that wall added to the plan, so that's included in staff's recommended conditions tonight. With that masonry wall screening of the parking lot, the screens are consistent with the requirements of the district. And then finally, the applicant is proposing to install streetscaping consistent with a 4-lane avenue design in the zoning ordinance, including new sidewalks and a planting strip with street trees. Those are both consistent with the dimensional requirements for that street type, and the layout and quantity of trees is consistent with the requirements. As with the last case, some of those amenities are proposed on the private property, and so we'd be looking for the recording of a public easement for access to the new streetscape in that area. Once again, I'll just remind you, signage as shown in the plan is not subject to review and approval by the Planning Commission tonight. There is a non-conforming pole sign on the site that should be removed as part of this project. And we do not yet have specifications for the site lighting, but I would just note that those are included as a condition of approval and will be reviewed against the requirements of section 96 of the city code. So with that, staff is recommending approval of the special use permit and site plan review subject to the following 8 conditions. 1, the applicant comply with the requirements and the criteria for adult use establishments, the general criteria, as well as the specific criteria applying to retailers. 2, that the applicant provide specifications for the proposed bicycle parking, solid waste plan, and screening wall, and increase the number of bicycle parking spaces to satisfy the minimum required by code. 3, that cross-access easements be provided between the contiguous parking areas to the north and south. 4, that public access easements be provided for the new streetscape along North Mission. 5, that the applicant provide specifications for the proposed lighting on the site so that we can confirm their compliance with section 96.13. 6, that the applicant split the property prior to receiving their certificate of occupancy. 7, that the applicant remove the existing non-conforming pole sign from the property. And 8, that the applicant comply with the requirements of public works and public safety. Given that the applicant in this case is the same applicant as in our last case, they are still present and ready to answer any questions that the Planning Commission might have. And that concludes my presentation, Madam Chair.
I have a question. It's in regards to, in the perspective, it shows and in the plans, it shows a sidewalk coming out from the front of the building. And it just seems like it might not be matching up with where a crosswalk would be, but almost opening right up into where the busy flow of traffic is. Do we really want to have a crosswalk or a sidewalk in that location?
So I will note, Commissioner Ortman, that if you look in your report, it would be somewhat out of the, I have the site plan on the screen sort of cropped and zoomed in on the site so it shows up a little better. But if you look at the full site plan in your packet, you'll note that on the opposite side of Mission Street, there's actually a ramp out into Mission Street that is directly to the east of that proposed connection. And that sidewalk actually connects down into the north along the north side of Meyer. And our applicant in our next case is proposing to install a sidewalk on the north side of Corporate Drive from that intersection all the way to their establishment. So this connection does actually connect over to a receiving sidewalk connection on the opposite side of Mission Street.
Okay, it looked like it was down just a bit from where the intersection was, where there might be already an established safe crossing location at the light, but okay, I guess I'd be concerned with the heaviness of traffic that goes through there if there wasn't already a designated crossing area with some safety lights for that.
Yeah, I was just checking Google Street View to confirm, and just given the radius of the curb at that intersection of Corporate Drive and North Mission, essentially that ramp that is the existing ramp on the opposite side of Mission Street, that ramp is located at the end of that curb radius. So basically the first point at which that curb line straightens out heading to the south of Mission. I would also note in looking at the street view that there is already a curb ramp on this west side of Mission Street at that location that lines up. And so I believe the applicant's looking to just connect to what's already there, which is a curb ramp that comes off Mission Street and connects to the existing public sidewalk that runs along the west side of North Mission. So that's actually not a change from current condition.
Any other questions for Mr. Kane? Okay, if the applicant would like to speak.
Good evening. I think you've heard the preamble from previously, so I have really nothing more to add to Jacob's comprehensive review, but just I'm here to answer questions if necessary. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for the applicant? Hearing none, I will open the public comment portion of this hearing. If there's anyone from the public that would like to comment. You're muted, Mr.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll just note that we did not receive any emails into the comment email inbox during this public hearing.
Thank you. So I'll close public comment and open up discussion.
You only get energy when your solar panels are focused and pointed at the sun.
Does anyone want to make a motion? Commissioner Leash, you're muted.
Wouldn't be the first time. All right, let's give this a try again. Move to approve SUP 2011, SPR 2012, subject to the following conditions. 1, the applicant shall comply with all special use permit criteria for adult use establishments as well as the specific criteria applying to retailers. 2, the applicant shall provide specifications for the proposed bicycle parking, solid waste plan, and screening wall, and increase the number of bicycle parking spaces to satisfy the minimum required by code. 3, cross-access easements shall be provided between contiguous parking areas to the north and south of the site in accordance with section 154.412.a.23. 4, public access easements shall be provided for the new streetscape area along North Mission. 5, the applicant shall provide specifications for all proposed site lighting to demonstrate compliance with section 96.13 of Mount Pleasant City Code. 6, the applicant shall split the subject property prior to receiving a certificate of occupancy. 7, the applicant shall remove the existing non-conforming pole sign from the property. 8, the applicant shall comply with the requirements of Public Works and Public Safety.
Second,
Any further discussion? Mr. Kane, will you take a roll call vote?
Commissioner Daly,
Aye.
Commissioner Honig,
Aye.
Commissioner Horgan,
aye.
Commissioner Irwin. Aye. Commissioner Leash,
Aye.
Commissioner Ortman,
Aye.
and Commissioner Rise hasn't rejoined us, has she?
Oh, no.
Doesn't sound like it. Madam Chair, the motion passes 6-0.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is SUP 2012 and SPR 2013. Mr. Kane?
Thank you, Madam Chair. It will probably bring great relief to the Planning Commission to know that the number of staff conditions will diminish with each consecutive project tonight. So I appreciate Commissioner Leash being willing to take that on. Our next case tonight is a special use permit and site plan review application for an adult use marijuana retailer. The proposal location is 1005 Corporate Drive, which is a property located in our SCI Industrial District. There are no special requirements on this property. The future land use is industrial. The current and prior use, this location does have a special use permit for medical marijuana provisioning center and for a medical marijuana Class A grower. Later tonight, our next two agenda items, you'll be considering a Class C adult use marijuana grower special use permit, as well as a medical marijuana Class C grower special use permit, which would be a change from that current Class A special use permit approval. Property owners 3967 Euclid LLC, site area 2.11 acres. The subject property is located just to the east of North Mission Street on Corporate Drive. Immediately to the south of the property is Meyer, so we're in the same general neck of the woods as our previous case. Immediately to the north of this property is a stormwater retention facility. Immediately to the west is a motorsports dealership. Immediately to the east is a vacant lot. The subject properties to the north, east, and west are all zoned industrial and have a future land use of industrial. The property immediately to the south, the Meyer store, is zone CD4 general urban with a future land use of commercial. This is a photograph of current conditions of the property. This is looking from Corporate Drive toward the north and west. You'll see the existing building. It's just shy of 16,000 square feet. Located here. That motorsports dealership is over here to the left. Meyer, in this case, would be immediately to the rear of the photographer. And then another perspective just from toward the west on Corporate Drive, looking towards the northeast. This is the side of the building. That retention facility, the stormwater retention facility I mentioned, is located here. Just beyond that retention facility would be the on and off ramps for North US 127. Adult use marijuana retailers in the SCI Industrial Zoning District are subject to a special use permit. Those special use permit criteria are the same as the past two cases. There are general criteria that apply to all adult use marijuana establishments, as well as specific criteria that apply only to retail. As part of staff's recommended conditions of approval this evening, is a recommendation that the applicant be held to the special use permit conditions that apply generally to adult use establishments, as well as the specific criteria for retailers. The site plan is shown on the screen, and you'll see that existing building. It's 15,840 square feet. It is a one-story building. A significant portion of the building is not proposed for use at this time. the front portion of the building is the area that's proposed to be used for the adult use marijuana retailer, as well as a portion of that space is proposed to be used for the adult use and medical marijuana growers, grower licenses that are proposed in your next two agenda items. The proposed retailer is proposed to be operational from 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. daily, which is consistent with the hour of operation limitations that are part of those special use permit criteria for retailers. On the screen, you'll see some elevations of the proposed facility. The east elevation here on the bottom of your screen, and on the top of your screen, you'll see that south elevation of the building. I think these are actually labeled backwards, and looking at them, I'm quite confident this is the south elevation. That would be your east elevation. So in those previous pictures, this would have been the elevation in the picture number 1, whereas this would be the elevation in picture number 2. In terms of site plan review, not a ton to report in this case. As with the last case, the applicant's proposing parking 56 vehicular parking spaces at in this case. Based on that number of vehicular parking spaces, 12 bicycle parking spaces would be required. Currently, the site plan shows 9, so we'd be looking for an adjustment there to meet the minimum requirements of code. The applicant is proposing a solid waste enclosure for a dumpster on the north side of the cultivation building. The specification should be provided on the final site plan. In terms of private landscaping and fencing, the applicant's proposing 13 trees in that first lot layer of the site, which is consistent with the requirements of the SDI zoning district. The applicant's also proposing 2 landscape islands with trees within the parking area, which is consistent with the landscaping requirements for a parking area. The applicant's also providing additional trees, shrubs, and flowers, which are not required by ordinance, but are shown on that landscaping plan. The current landscaping plan shows a deciduous screening hedge between the parking area and the public right-of-way, which is inconsistent with the requirements for a screening hedge for a parking lot. Those screening hedges are required to be an evergreen species, and so as one of the conditions of approval, staff is recommending that that landscaping plan be updated with compliant species. And then finally, generally speaking, the SDI zoning district does not include any streetscaping requirements. However, in this case, the applicant is proposing to install a new sidewalk along Corporate Drive along the entire frontage of this property, as well as connecting to the west along the frontage of the neighboring property to connect with the existing sidewalks that exist along North Mission. This would provide for a full pedestrian connection to that adult use marijuana retailer. And I just am noting here that those streetscape installations and repairs are not requirements generally of the SDI zoning district. These are elements that the applicant is voluntarily including in their project. In terms of signage, there is an existing sign on the rear of the building for a business that once existed at this location that is now closed. Consistent with the code, signs for businesses that no longer exist are to be removed. And so we're recommending as a condition of approval that that sign be removed. All additional signage will be subject to review and permit by the building safety department. And then finally, we'll need specifications for the site lighting to confirm their compliance with section 96.13 of the city code. So with that, staff's recommendation is approval of the special use permit and site plan review subject to the following conditions. 1, that the applicant comply with the special use permit criteria for adult use establishments and the specific criteria for retailers. 2, that the applicant provide specifications for their bicycle parking and solid waste enclosure and increase the number of bicycle parking spaces to the minimum code requirement. 3, that the applicant provide a code compliant screening hedge for the parking area. 4, that the applicant provide specifications for their site lighting. 5, that the existing sign on the rear of the building be removed. And 6, that the applicant comply with the requirements of public works and public safety. We do have several members of the team for this application present on the call tonight. I'm happy to answer any questions for you, I'm sure. And that concludes my presentation tonight, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Kane. Questions for Mr. Kane? Hearing none, if the applicant would like to speak.
Good evening. My name is Attorney Michael Stein, and I represent 3967 Euclid LLC. And as the other applicant that has received approval, we are my client is well versed in this industry, is a beneficial owner of several other facilities across Michigan, and owns the medical marijuana license there right now, and we have the architect and several other members on this call to answer any questions that you may have, and we look forward to doing business in Mount Pleasant.
Thank you. Any questions for the applicant?
Hey, my name is Zachary Brown Hopkins. I'm his next door neighbor on TBD Corporate Drive. Just wanted to know with the sidewalk, how far he's coming down, real quick, and where does he plan to put the sidewalk at? Because that's
Mr.
only one thing
Hopkins?
I really want to know. Yes.
We could have you participate during the public comment period.
Oops, sorry. Sorry
Just
about
a
that.
moment. Just hold that comment. Thank
Sorry.
you, sir.
Anyone on the commission with questions? Okay, if not hearing anybody, I'll open public comment. You can resume your comment, Mr. Brown.
Sorry about that. Just two questions. Number one, how far is that sidewalk coming down on Corporate Drive? And then also, we'll be sharing utilities or whatnot, because I want to say the utilities are at the street. Do you need anything from me on my end or no? That's to the architect or whoever's doing the building for this property.
Can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
All right, sir. Yeah, this is Zaid from ZA Design. As far as needing anything from you, not at the moment, not that I know of. Utilities will be handled by the client. But since you're the next door neighbor, if anything, and I thank you for reaching out, we'll be sure to get in contact with you. I hope that answers that question. But as far as the sidewalk is going to extend to the edge of our property. So wherever our property line is, we'll be responsible for that portion, up to that portion. And I'm actually here at my office trying to open up the drawing to see, because I don't want to really misspeak. It's hard to see anything on the phone, but I believe it just extends to the edge of the property.
That is correct. It extends to that eastern property boundary and then ends.
Thank you. Does that answer your question, Mr. Brown?
Trying to get off mute. Yes, that answers my question. Thank you. Just wanted to know how far I was going to go down, because I plan on doing some things as well and coming here. Just wanted to see how the ebbs and flows of this hearing work. So that's about it. Thank you.
Any other public comments?
Madam Chair, we do not have anything in the comment inbox.
Thank you, Mr. Kane. Hearing no one else, I will close public comment and open up discussion. Anybody?
Move to approve SUP 2012 and SPR 2013, subject to the following conditions. 1, the applicant shall comply with all special use permit criteria for adult use establishments, as well as the specific criteria applying to retailers. 2, the applicant shall provide specifications for the proposed bicycle parking and solid waste enclosure and increase the number of bicycle parking spaces to satisfy the minimum required by code. 3, the applicant shall provide a code compliant screening hedge. 4, the applicant shall provide specifications for all proposed site lighting to demonstrate compliance with section 96.13 of Mount Pleasant City Code. 5, the applicant shall remove the existing sign on the rear of the building. And 6, the applicant shall comply with the requirements of Public Works and Public Safety.
Second.
Any further discussion on the motion?
I think it's neat that the rain gardens included in this, especially as close to open water as this site is, as far as trying to, slow down the rate of runoff into a pond after heavy rainfall. That's just minor.
Okay, anything else? Mr. Kane, will you take a roll call vote?
Commissioner Daly?
Aye.
Commissioner Honig?
Aye.
Commissioner Horgan,
Aye.
Commissioner Irwin,
Aye.
Commissioner Leash. Commissioner Leash,
Aye.
Commissioner Orman.
Aye.
Madam Chair, the motion passes 6-0.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is SUP 2013. Mr. Kane?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So our next case is at the same location as our previous case, 1005 Corporate Drive. This is again a property that's zoned in the located in the SDI Industrial Zoning District. The request is for a special use permit for a Class C medical marijuana grower, and the site is 2.11 acres. On the screen, you'll see an overview once again of the property located to the north of Meyer, to the south of those on and off ramps from US 127. Uses generally industrial to the north, east, and west, and then we have the Meyer supermarket located to the south. Current conditions are the same as for the prior case. This is a perspective from Corporate Drive looking to the north and west, and then the same building located looking towards the north and east. The subject property, in addition to the special use permit that was just granted for an adult use retailer tonight, has a special use permit approval from the Planning Commission that was issued on April 4th, 2019 for a medical marijuana provisioning center and for a medical marijuana Class A grower. If approved tonight, this special use permit would replace that Class A grower approval. For medical marijuana, a Class A grower license allows an applicant to grow up to 500 plants. In this case, for a medical marijuana grower, a Class C license entitles a license holder to grow up to 1,500 plants. Our ordinance, as well as state law, allow for a license holder to stack medical marijuana grower licenses within a single facility, which is you're allowed to have multiple licenses to multiply the plant count. Our ordinance allows for up to 3 Class C licenses to be stacked. The applicant is not proposing to stack licenses here, so the maximum number of plants that would be permitted would be 1,500. The medical marijuana grower would occupy a 3,186 square foot space within the building. As I mentioned in the last report, the building is just shy of 16,000 square feet in total. The space, the 3,100 square feet that would be shared, would be used for the medical marijuana grower, would be proposed to be shared with an adult use grower as well, which is in your next case. Otherwise, site conditions, hours of operation are identical to the previous case. Medical marijuana growers are subject to a special use permit in the SDI zoning district. There are several general criteria that apply to all medical marijuana facilities, as well as specific criteria that apply only to growers. Those are listed on the screen as well as in the staff report tonight. Staff's recommendation is approval of the special use permit subject to the following conditions. 1, that the applicant comply with the special use permit criteria for medical marijuana facilities as well as the specific criteria for growers. 2, that the applicant comply with the approval requirements of SUP 2012 and SPR 2013, which was your previous case. And 3, that the applicant comply with the requirements of Public Works and Public Safety. That concludes my presentation, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Kane. Any questions for Mr. Kane? Okay, if the applicant would like to speak.
Thank you again. This is Michael Stein, attorney for 3967 Euclid LLC. I don't really have anything to add. I think that was a great presentation by Mr. Kane, other than to just say the only thing that is changing is instead of it being a 500 plant count license, we're looking to do 1,500. But aside from that, everything else would remain identical.
Thank you. Any questions for the applicant? Hearing none, I will open public comment.
Madam Chair, I would just note that there are no comments in the public comment inbox.
Thank you, Mr. Kane. I'm closing public comment and opening discussion.
Move to approve SUP 2013, subject to the following conditions. 1, the applicant shall comply with all special use permit criteria for medical marijuana facilities, as well as the specific criteria applying to growers. 2, the applicant shall comply with the approval requirements of SUP 2012 and SPR 2013. 3, the applicant shall comply with the requirements of Public Works and Public Safety.
Anyone want a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Mr. Kane, will you take a roll call vote?
Commissioner Daly,
Aye.
Commissioner Honig,
Aye.
Commissioner Horgan,
Aye.
Commissioner Irwin,
Aye.
Commissioner Leash,
Aye.
Commissioner Ortman.
Aye.
Madam Chair, the motion passes 6-0.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Next item on the agenda is SUP 2014. Or yes.
Yes, Madam Chair, this is our final case. It's a little hard to keep things straight this evening. We got a lot of marijuana cases on the docket. This is our last one tonight. Once again, for the same location as the previous two cases, 1005 Corporate Drive in the SDI Industrial Zoning District. In this case, the request is a special use permit for a Class C adult use marijuana grower. Subject property, once again, located on Corporate Drive to the north of Meyer. All of the associated land uses have not changed, to my knowledge, since the last two presentations, nor have current conditions. So dealing with the same property, the same 15,000 plus square foot building. Adult use marijuana growers are subject to a special use permit in the STI zoning district. As with all other adult use establishment types, there are several special use permit criteria that apply to all of them. And then for growers, for adult use growers, there are specific adult use grower criteria that apply to that special use permit. And staff's recommendation tonight includes a condition that the applicant remain compliant with all of those special use permit criteria. So with that, staff's recommendation is approval of the special use permit for this adult use license. I do want to note before I read those conditions that there's one difference here from the last case is that under the adult use marijuana law, the MRTMA, Class C licenses actually permit up to 2,000 plants, whereas for the medical marijuana law, the MMFLA, the Class C license is for 1,500 plants. So that's just an aspect, a difference between those two laws. The applicant's proposal for a Class C license here is for one Class C license, and that license would allow for up to 2,000 adult use marijuana plants. Staff is recommending approval of the special use permit with basically the same conditions as the last special use permit, that the applicant comply with the requirements, the special use permit criteria for adult use establishments, and the specific criteria for growers, that the applicant comply with the approval requirements of SUP 2012 and 2013, which was the approval of the adult use retailer earlier this evening, and 3, that the applicant comply with the requirements of Public Works and Public Safety.
Thank you, Mr. Kane. Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Kane?
Jacob, will this mean that one part of the facility will grow medical marijuana, and another part of the facility will grow for recreational use?
Yes, I think that may be a good question if the applicant wants to expand on that during their portion of the presentation, or if the chair wants to let the applicant jump in if there's no other questions for staff. But yeah, the proposal would allow for both adult use and medical marijuana growing on this property, which is consistent with both city code and state regulations. that is permitted to occur.
Any other questions for Mr. Kane? If the applicant would like to speak?
Good evening. Michael Stein, last time of the evening, representing 3967 Euclid LLC. Just to answer that question, that's what the state requires, is that they be separate. So adding this additional Class C adult use license won't change anything. It will just allow them to produce recreational marijuana and medical marijuana. And I'd like to thank Mr. Kane for his comprehensive presentation. And I don't have anything else to add, but we will answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you. Any questions for the applicant?
How much power do you draw to do all this growing? That sounds like a lot of energy.
I don't know if we lost our, if our architect had hopped off the call, but unfortunately I can't, I'm just a lonely attorney. I don't, I don't know anything about power requirements, but I assure you it's a lot.
Here,
Oh, here he is.
I believe the proposal is about 2,000 amps, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other questions for the applicant? Hearing none, I will open up the public comment portion of this hearing. If anyone would like to comment.
Madam Chair, we don't have any public comments in the public comment inbox.
Thank you, Mr. Kane. I'll close public comment and open up discussion. Would anyone like to say anything?
Move to approve SUP 2014, subject to the following conditions. 1, the applicant shall comply with all special use permit criteria for adult use establishments, as well as the specific criteria applying to growers. 2, the applicant shall comply with approval requirements of SUP 2012 and SPR 2013. 3, the applicant shall comply with the requirements of Public Works and Public Safety.
Second.
Any further discussion? Okay, please take a roll call vote.
Commissioner Daly,
Aye.
Commissioner Honig,
Aye.
Commissioner Horgan,
Aye.
Commissioner Irwin. Aye. Commissioner Leash,
Aye.
Commissioner Ortman.
Aye.
Madam Chair, the motion passes 6-0.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. And next item on the agenda is TC 2002. Mr. Kane.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Our final public hearing tonight is a text change, really more accurately described as a series of text changes included in one ordinance, this text change 2002, which would modify residential building standards in our CD3L, CD3, and CD4 zoning districts. You'll recall that at your September meeting, or after your September meeting rather, the Planning Commission held a work session to discuss this series of amendments that staff, together with members of the Central Michigan Home Builders Association, have been working on for several months. We brought this forward for introduction at your October meeting, and I provided a bit more detail on an overview of the proposed changes, which include everything from some additional flexibility on front setbacks in those districts, to the elimination of certain regulations such as the frontage build-out requirements in our CD3L and CD3 residential districts, to some adjustments to roof pitch standards and garage location standards, meant to provide more flexibility and allow for more contextual development to occur in a variety of neighborhoods throughout the city. tonight, it's before you for a public hearing. I will note that at our last meeting, Commissioner Rise indicated some concerns about the clarity of the language in sections 1 and 2, which have to do with front setbacks and the CD3L and CD3 zoning districts. I did have the city attorney review the ordinance and asked specifically that he attend to those sections. And I will note after his review, he did indicate that he felt those sections were clear and was confident that they were sufficiently clear to stand up if challenged, and he did not recommend any changes to them at this time. So the ordinance before you tonight is unchanged from the version that was presented to you in work session and introduced to you last month. And I would welcome any questions from the Planning Commission before or after the public hearing tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Kane. Any questions for Mr. Kane? Hearing none, I will open up the public comment. If anyone from the public would like to comment.
This is Andy Tyson, immediate past president of the Home Builders Association of Central Michigan. Wanted to thank you for your consideration in this matter. As Jacob mentioned, our group has spent several months working with city staff to try and identify some of the things in the ordinance that we have found to be a bit of a challenge as we look at the changing residential market in our area. And so we want to thank staff for their efforts in helping navigate through those changes. And we feel like this would be a great modification to the ordinance to help promote affordable housing in our community. So I thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Any other members of the public that would like to comment?
Madam Chair, I'll note that there are no comments in the public comment inbox.
Thank you, Mr. Kane. I will close public comment and open up discussion.
Move to recommend that the City Commission adopt text change 2002.
Second,
Any discussion? Mr. Kane, will you take a roll call vote?
Commissioner Daly,
Aye.
Commissioner Honig,
Aye.
Commissioner Horgan,
aye.
Commissioner Irwin,
Aye.
Commissioner Leash,
Aye.
Commissioner Ortman.
Aye.
Madam Chair, the motion passes 6-0.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is public comment. This is the last opportunity for the public to comment. If anyone would like to speak.
Madam Chair, I'll just note we have no comments in our public comment inbox.
Thank you. I will close public comment, and then next item on the agenda is staff report, December Planning Commission meeting, anticipated agenda items. Mr. Kane?
Madam Chair, at this time, I'm not anticipating that we'll have any cases for review by the Planning Commission in December. However, I would like for us to meet either way, primarily so that we can go to work session, and tentatively, at a minimum, I'd like to discuss goals for next year for 2021. I understand that some of you may not have received a hard copy of the work session materials for tonight. And given that we're down to 6 commissioners on the call, and we've already had a pretty lengthy agenda tonight, I think we'll have a less lengthy agenda in December for our regular meeting. I'd like to recommend that we postpone that work session topic, which was to talk about ground level residential in the downtown. I'm going to recommend that you postpone that to December and just go ahead and adjourn the meeting tonight if the Planning Commission is willing to entertain that. The only other thing I just wanted to note, well, 2 things. One, as I mentioned at the beginning of the meeting, and if you've been following some of the action in the state legislature related to COVID-19, I mentioned that the Open Meetings Act had been amended to provide some additional opportunity for local communities to meet via Zoom or other technologies for their public meetings as we continue to address the COVID-19 pandemic. One of the ramifications of that Open Meetings Act amendment is that change to the way we do roll call in your locations. So we'll be continuing to do that as we continue to meet remotely. I would expect at this time that we'll be meeting remotely in December and then looking at the plan going forward from there in 2021. The other thing I wanted to note is if you may have noticed the public safety reports that are included in your staff reports looked a little bit different this month. The fire department started to use a different reporting format. And I wanted to raise that to your attention, primarily because the first time I saw the new report format, it prompted a lot of questions in my mind because it will indicate a pass-fail status on the left-hand side of that report. And for a lot of these projects, you're going to see a lot of things that are marked fail. And when I first saw that, I thought, fail generally is not a good thing. I was concerned that there was a big problem with this particular project. And I just wanted to let you know that that's really just an aspect of how their systems work. And so you'll continue to see under each standard that the fire department's reviewing a project against, that there'll be comments from the fire department about their review status. So I would encourage you to disregard those pass and fail comments in the left-hand column and to pay more attention to the specific nature of the comments from the fire department, because those pass-fail statuses in most cases aren't going to change until the final site inspection. So well after the public hearing and the planning commission process. So just a nuance I wanted to point out, since we've been dealing with the same fire department reports for a number of years now. And it struck me at some point as you're reviewing future staff reports, you may take note of that. I just wanted to make sure you knew that as you were looking at those reports. Beyond that, I don't have anything else to add tonight unless the planning commission has any questions for me.
Any questions for Mr. Kane? Would someone like to move to adjourn or postpone the work session?
Move to postpone the work session until the December meeting.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? Mr. Kane, will you take a roll call vote?
Commissioner Daly,
Aye.
Commissioner Honig,
Aye.
Commissioner Horgan,
Aye.
Commissioner Irwin,
Aye.
Commissioner Leash,
Aye.
Commissioner Ortman.
Aye.
Madam Chair, the motion passes 6-0.
Thank you, Mr. Kane. Would someone like to make a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Aye.
Commissioner Daly,
Aye.
Commissioner Honig,
Aye.
Commissioner Horgan,
Aye.
Commissioner Irwin,
Aye.
Commissioner Leash,
Aye.
Commissioner Ortman.
Aye.
Madam Chair, you're adjourned.
Thank you.
Everybody.
Good night.
Aye.